Hi there, listener. This is Brian. I am part of Kelly's audio crew. Quick note about this episode. Unfortunately, there was a bit of background noise that we were unable to remove no matter how hard we tried, but everything else about the episode's pretty great, so we thought you'd want to hear it anyway. We apologize and enjoy.
Welcome to the Get Your Act Together podcast. I am your host, Kelly Reynolds, and today I would love to introduce you to my guest, Melinda Lee. Melinda, wonderful to meet you.
Hi, Kelly. Good to see you. Good to meet with all of you.
Thank you so much for being my guest today.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
Awesome. So can you tell everyone where you're from and what you do?
I am from sunny California. Today, there's a little bit of fog, usually because I'm also in San Francisco. So although most of California is sunny, San Francisco is generally known to be foggy. It's quite romantic. I've gotten used to it. I was born and raised in San Francisco and love it here. It's beautiful. I have a daughter, 15 years old, and she's amazing.
That's amazing.
And I'm a speaker coach. I'm a presentation skills expert. And so what I do is I help people who are feeling really nervous. They're avoiding that presentation. They know inherently in their heart they're meant to do big things. And speaking, leading, having high-performing teams, which includes guiding, which includes communicating with grace and confidence, is a part of the deal. And when you're not able to do that effectively, then that diminishes your leadership, that diminishes who you are. And so we know that you're meant to do big things. And when you are avoiding those presentations, that means there's something deeper than that. And so I help people overcome whatever it is that is blocking them from succeeding, from leading, building high-performing teams, and communicating effectively. Because really, you're just connecting to people, connecting to their heart, connecting to that place that inspires them. And that's what builds great teams.
Awesome. Well, I love it.
Yeah.
We talk a lot about delegation and team here as my agency and other agencies that we talk to and clients. So that's wonderful. I'm excited to get into this. So
you.
What made you want to become a speaking coach, motivational speaker, and all that? How did you get there?
I had to try a lot of different things and fail at a lot of different things. And then my intuition and heart took me back to this place. And the more I realized and thought about it, the more I reflected on why is it that communication matters to me? What is the big deal about it? It's something I'm so afraid of, and yet I've mastered it, but why am I not marketing myself around public speaking? I realized that my whole ancestry, the people who are behind me, all the women in my family, didn't have a voice. My grandmother, she was the fourth concubine. So what that means is when she was 25 years old, she was sold into a marriage to a man who was 35 years her senior. My dear, sweet grandmother. She listened to her husband and 3 wives. And she was the 4th wife. So she didn't have a voice. And then there's my mom. My mom raised 4 children, ran 2 restaurants. My dad started the restaurant and he left. He did all his other hobbies and really just left the restaurant and the kids to my mom. And she got yelled at quite a bit by workers, by customers. And she was just sweet. She just didn't want to speak up. She didn't want to ruffle any feathers. So she held it all in. And so when I went into corporate, I was the same. This is what my upbringing is. I did what I was told and worked really hard and thought if I work really hard, they're going to see my potential. And that wasn't the case. People got promoted before me and it was frustrating. I was upset and I thought, why are they not seeing my potential? I'm working just as hard. And I noticed that the people that were moving up, one person in particular, he was really good at talking to the people. He was really good at connecting and building those relationships with the key people. And he was getting projects. He was getting, then he finally got the promotion, because he was able to communicate and it was all about that. And so I decided one day when my manager came in and said, hey, I want you to speak in front of these executives. I knew in my heart I wanted to do it, but yet I was super afraid. Who am I to go in front of these executives to speak? But it was something I really wanted to overcome and become and seen as a leader. And so I got the tools, I got the techniques, and I did it. I went up in front of those leaders and I was like speaking confidently and I was like, yay, I found what I wanted to do. So I started mentoring people. And yet when I went out to on my own, with my business, I ignored it. I said, no, that's not me. But then I was taken back here. I was taken back and led back here because all the other options failed. And so I'm here. I am now, once I owned it, like I listened to the intuition, I listened to my gut, and now that's partly what I do. I help people get back into their intuition and speaking from the heart, because what we've been trained to do at corporate is speak from our mind and our thoughts and what we're going to say. And although that's a part of it, right, we have to craft what we're going to say and all of that, but then we've lost it. When you keep on practicing and practicing, you're not speaking from your heart. You're not speaking from that place of connection and of empathy and really listening to your audience. You're just regurgitating what you just memorized. And so I'm bringing those two back in. Like there's a structure that I want to bring in, but then there's also, don't forget, you are meant to be there. Don't forget, you deserve to be heard. You're here to make a difference. And so that comes in leading with empathy and heart. And so we don't want to forget that. We haven't been trained to really connect back to that place.
I love this because it was actually one of my questions that I wanted to ask. If people tended to be better at scripted versus unscripted speaking. Like I can get on a podcast, know nothing about it, and like just totally speak from what I think. But if I have to memorize a speech, I cannot remember it. I freak out. Like it's super, super hard. And like that's why I could never really like have a script for my podcast. They all have to just come off my brain. Right. I'm wondering, is there a difference there? Is it different for different people?
I think it's generally the same. I notice that when people script it, so there's a couple of things, schools of thought. So I think that it's okay for people, if you are the type of person that likes to write it all out, I think it's important to write it out and then get it all out, just to have what you want to say just written out. And then you go to practice. I think where people get hung up on is they want to memorize the whole thing. And then they want to practice word for word. And then they start to not lose, they lose the spontaneity and the freedom to just go off the cuff.
And they're more robot-y kind of
speaking. And then they're more robot-y.
Yeah.
Right. And then, but then I think where you want to marry the two, sometimes if you're the type of person that is really good at keeping clear and concise, then you're in the right spot. You don't have to write it out, right? If you could just go off the cuff and be with the audience and stay on target, where some people, if they don't script it or if they don't have an outline, they end up going off the cuffs, they ramble, and then they're like, oh shoot, what was I talking about? And so I like having, you can have an outline, a structure, a North Star of what you want to cover, key points. When you go to practice, just memorize, just have the key points, but then the key is let go of the key points. Like it's important. I think people, when they have the key points, they have it. But then when you go and trust and say to yourself, this is a key thing that I like to teach people. Your mind will find things that you want it to find. So if you go in and say, whatever I say, it's going to be great. Whatever I say is going to be great. Your mind is going to automatically do that for you. So I've already written out what I wanted. I have the key phrases that I want to say, but then everything else is going to be great after that. Just trust it. It's like letting go of training wheels. Just trusting it. So I think it's also important to have the key points, but then letting it go. Awesome. And then so the key points will keep you on track. So
and I feel like if you're speaking enough, you kind of have the key points that you're going to be talking about over and over again, right? So that when you get there, you can start speaking about them. That's the practice, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
All right.
Practicing
this is all coming together.
Key points, and then leading with heart. Like sometimes I'll hold my hand where my stomach is and my heart. Right now, just hold it there. Leading with heart.
I've had guests on the podcast who were clearly reading off the 3 speaking points that they wanted to have. Right. And I'm like, but I asked you a question on something else, and they literally just like there was no conversation. And I was like, okay, but it's so much more fun when you're asking questions and there's a communication there, because you get more interesting things happening in the conversation. Right.
And then that's the key too, because then if you're stuck on the key points, you're not allowing, and really what you're doing is you're keeping in this box, and you're not allowing for the freedom to have new thoughts, new ideas, and brainstorming. That's where the fun begins.
Right? I'm much more, I love that. Like I love getting into the conversation. And there's been times where I got on the podcast or I've been on other speaking things and something came up and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing, this conversation. I wouldn't have known it if we were only going to read off of our 3 sentences that we've written.
Exactly.
It's much more fun. So you mentioned that you were scared to market. Have you gotten over that, or is that a work
Oh
in
yeah.
progress?
Yeah, now it's done. Now, once I went into the market, thank you for helping me clarify that. I was scared. I wasn't owning my craft. And then once I took that step to say, hey, this is what I do, communications coaching, presentation skills coaching, it started to come in, right? You know, you start the environment, the universe, opportunities started coming in, and it started clicking more, and it started to mirror back what I wanted and mirror back, you know, the intentions that I have. And now I'm in it. I own it. I embody it, and I love it. And then now I could say, wow, this is my passion. This is what I'm here to do in this world.
I love it. That's
right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I've been avoiding marketing for years, as any of my longtime listeners will know. I'm an operations person. I like nerdy things. So when I hear about other people going, yeah, it's hard, I like to ask how that went.
It just keeps going. It keeps going. And then eventually you start to feel like I did it.
Yeah,
I'm doing it.
Right.
Yeah, it gets easier.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
You recently started a podcast, correct?
I did. That was all scary too.
I was going to say, you mentioned in there that it was a stretch for you. And that was surprising to me, because this is kind of your gig. Like, you're a speaking coach, right? And you're going to go speak, and it still was a stretch for you.
I know. It's all different. So what it was a stretch was, so even videos is another level of stretch. I mean, yeah, you could say I'm a speaking coach. What's wrong with, if you can speak in person, why can't you do a video? It's all different. It's all, for me, maybe other people who are just, for me, every layer was a different spin to it. Just like Zoom is it's not exactly the same as speaking in person. So I love speaking in person. That was great. Speaking in Zoom was a different animal to me. So I did have to get over some initial fear and criticism over Zoom. The podcast here is different because it was a little different in the sense where my fear, why am I doing this? It was more about how do I fit this into my schedule? So when you were stretched, our mind is really good at judgment, thinking about what is this correct, just making sure it's got the, crossing the T's, because it doesn't want to do anything that's stretching. So it kept on saying, you're doing too much. You're busy. Is anybody going to listen? Right. So again, diminishing my own voice, diminishing who I am, and my ability to be able to do what I want. I knew in my heart I wanted to do it, but it still was a stretch. I took one step forward, just kept on going, and then now I'm getting into the swing of things.
I totally feel you on the layers of like being comfortable in things, because I hated speaking. I started doing this podcast. I wanted to throw up at least the first 30 episodes. Yeah. And then we added video in. I don't know. This is episode 128. I don't know, maybe 50 episodes ago. I don't know, maybe 25. I don't remember I just remember video being like, really? I'm 45 years old and now I'm going to have to be on videos all the time? Like, it was so much. And I'm not usually a person who cares a lot about what my face looks like or what my hair looks like. But oh my goodness, that was a hard one. That was like the layer that was hard.
Inner critic? What was the inner critic that was hard?
Oh, like we got a really good camera and I was on video all the time, and I was like, that's what my face looks like? Oh my God. Or my hair had started to fall out and it was growing back, so I had like these spikes of hair from stress. So I just felt like, what are you doing? Why in the world are you going to put yourself on video? Like, I had to talk myself through it and be like, you just got to keep going. And now I can get on and make a reel in 4 seconds and it doesn't bother me.
Love it.
But it took me a while.
It took a while, right? Yeah. And so part of what I do too is if you're a leader and you have a high inner critic, especially if you're about to go speak, right now we're talking about different vehicles of speaking, whether it's in person, video, podcast. Sometimes that inner critic, especially if it's really intense, it's going to prevent you from really being who you are, right? You're going to say things like, who are you? What are you doing? Look at the way you look, but look at the way you sound. They're going to judge you. And so part of what I do is I help leaders who have this inner critic, because speaking in flow, my podcast and what I do is speaking in flow. Speaking in flow means you're working with the inner critic. We're minimizing it as much as possible, because when it's really intense, you're going to be actually blocked from your flow. You're going to be blocked from actually being present. And what I help leaders do is I help them to understand that most of that inner critic, 90% of it is actually from past moments. So it's not really present moment. You might have had past moments where something didn't go well, and then you don't feel good. You don't feel good by yourself. You feel not smart enough. You don't feel good enough. And then so now it's surfacing up. It's your wound from the past is surfacing up, and so it wants to actually protect you. It doesn't want you to go into it. It's just letting you know this is uncomfortable for you. You got to be careful. It just wants you to be very careful. But the challenge is when it's too intense, again, it prevents you from being present. It prevents you from being who you are, because I know and you know you're fully capable of doing this. But then when this is all this inner critic is so intense, we cannot be ourselves. We block, and that's why people get robotic. People get afraid. They're blocking. Their barriers go up, and then suddenly you can't feel them. Suddenly they become somebody different when they're on stage. It's like, that's not who I just talked to.
Right?
Because there's so much inner critic in the background, making sure that they don't make a fool about themselves. So if you feel like that inner critic is really intense, you know, just kind of go back and say, what are some of these moments that are still bothering me? What is causing me to feel this way? And either journal it out or reach out to me. I'd be happy to help you just understand yourself a little bit more. Understand where this is coming from. And what we want to do is neutralize the charge. It's a visceral feeling. It's actually in the body and the thoughts. So we want to neutralize the charge around it. And it's just a very quick thing. You just feel free after that. When we set it free, you feel free, you feel lighter, you feel great, you feel like happy to be yourself. Because a lot of the past moments doesn't need to follow you anymore. It doesn't need to be. Our bodies are literally living in the past. Our bodies haven't caught up to our brain. So what happens is we're trapped. These emotions are trapped. And when something really frightening happens in the moment, they get released. They're like, here we go. That's why the nervousness comes in.
The cold sweat over your whole body.
The cold sweat. Yeah, it's unleashing. And so it's an opportunity for you to unleash what is all old things, and then so you could be more present.
That's great. Yeah. I still, to this day, we're at 128 episodes, and I've been on other people's podcasts, and I still, when I sit down, I go, and I start to have to like calm myself down. Even now, I think I guess I want to tell everyone, like, even when you're scared the first beginning, you're always going to be a little scared. At least I am.
Yeah. Open yourself to it.
And it's like, okay. It's okay. Just do it anyway.
Just do it anyways. Feel the feels. Feel the nervousness. Breathe into it. Right? Yeah. When we try to ignore it, that's when it actually gets worse.
And then you panic.
Yeah. And then you panic. Yeah. So notice it. Hey, thanks for being here. Hey, nerves, thanks for being here. You're part of me. It's okay. Let's go for the journey together. You can actually set it aside. You can let it know that, hey, thanks for being here. Acknowledging it. I see you. I hear. I notice you're here. Hey, you want to do something else? You want to just look and make sure. Give it a job. You can give it a job. Give it something to do.
Refocus
or
that
set
kind
it
of
free.
Energy.
Yeah. You could transition it into some excitement. Hey, thanks for being here. Hey, let's turn it into some excitement. Transition
I love that idea.
Yeah.
Put it to use.
Yeah. So noticing it versus ignoring it. Most people ignore it. And then, but when you acknowledge it, hey, I hear you're nervous. I feel I'm nervous. I feel it. And let's change it and transition it into excitement.
I love it. It's one of the things as a podcast host, I'm try to be super aware of when people are really nervous and just try to calm them down and make it as welcoming a space as possible.
Yeah.
Because you'll get so much, it's much more fun for me, but it's also a better interview. It's better listening to that person be like, okay, you're right. I'm not dying. It's going to be okay.
Yes. Yeah. So, you can help them just say, hey, I hear you're nervous, or I sense you're nervous. Let's acknowledge that you were nervous. That's okay.
Yeah.
A lot of people feel that way. And then, transition it.
So when people come to you, what are they coming to you for? Is it because they are scared to speak? Is it other things? It's mainly, I'm terrified to get up there and I have to do some kind of speaking.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're doing keynote speech. They're doing team meetings. They're an entrepreneur. As entrepreneurs, we want to have our signature speech. We want to speak more. We want to be seen as that expert. Yes, there's different ways to market. There's one-to-one, right? There's one-to-one networking, and you can get clients that way. When you get to the point of you want to really make a bigger impact, and I'm done with one-to-one, I want to be beyond that and reach more people, that's when speaking is required, right? You want to be out on stages, and you want to, have a signature speech. You want to have your brand out there known, your story known. And that's when they would reach out to me if they, they want to elevate themselves to a place of getting really, really great at speaking and corporate too. So leading team meetings, doing keynotes for the organization.
Yeah. And where do you start? Like, someone comes to you, they're terrified, they've got to get on stage for something.
Yeah.
Where do you start with them?
I immediately start with the private sessions. So I work with people with both private sessions and group settings. So, but before I put them into the group setting, we want to be able to take out all the old stuff. So it's almost like a kitchen remodel. If I want a shiny new kitchen with new appliances, I'm not just going to go put in the new appliance. I have to take out the old. So just like what I just mentioned to you earlier, I want to be, I'm going to meet with them privately. We're going to find out what's been holding you back. We're going to find out those past moments that are just blocking you, just having all this visceral feelings. We're going to find those out, neutralize the charge in the body. You're going to feel like, wow, I feel lighter. Now now I can go practice my speech. Now I can speak from the heart. Because if you just keep practicing your speech and you have all these old thoughts and inner critic going on, it doesn't work. You're just practicing your speech. You're regurgitating words. So we want you to just feel and own and embody confidence. That's the difference. Embodying the confidence with every fiber of your being. That is an inner job, inner game, right? And so we want to do that first. And then I put them in the group setting where they can be seen. We work on like helping you to overcome eye contact, fear of eye contact, fear of letting go of the script, fear of speaking from the heart, being in flow. I help them to really practice being in flow, and trusting your gut, trusting that you are meant to speak and lead, and that you can make a difference.
I love it.
Yeah.
Do you think that speaking is only for extroverts, or do you think it's something that introverts can learn as well?
I hope not. No, I hope people don't believe that. I know for a fact it's not only for extroverts. I know it's for any person, because every person is here to make a difference in their own way. And so using that, because I actually do help people in their marriages. I have a client right now who she is a wife, and she's been wanting to have more confidence with her husband and communicating in that space. And so helping her to build her voice while communicating with her husband.
That's amazing. Yeah, because just being able to communicate. I mean, a marriage is all about communication, right?
Right.
It's compromised communication.
Oh my goodness.
If you can't do that, I work with my husband too. There's a lot of us all day. You know what I mean? If we didn't communicate, there's no way we would still be together at all.
Yeah, no, that's so good. I mean, more kudos to you. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's a small house.
Do that.
This house gets smaller and smaller every day. When people come to you, they come to you, you're working with them to, have this confidence. I would almost say like stepping into their leadership. What is the biggest hurdle? Like, what is the most common thing that's their problem? Is it just mindset?
Mindset. Trusting yourself. Trusting that you're not, because they come in with, I'm not smart enough, or I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy to be seen.
Yeah.
Right? So I think that's the huge thing when we can overcome that real deep sense. Again, this is not just overcoming it with practicing. Because again, if you just practice this, you still inherently believe I'm not smart enough. Right?
Right.
So really overcoming that core wound of that frame of I am not smart enough, I'm not worthy. And once you can overcome that, then we can work on the structure of your presentation, what you're going to say, and all of that, right? And on top of it, once we've overcome that, the ahs and the ums and all those what ifs, they actually go, they leave, because you can now own and pause. You can be in your leadership and feel free to pause, feel free to slow down, because you believe with your heart that I am good enough.
I think is a really big distinction here, right? Because we can all practice a speech and then fumble through it because there's no confidence.
Right.
But like being able to be like, no, I know what I'm talking about. I can do this. Then you can just speak.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and you believe it with your heart, and you believe it with your whole body, your alignment with your mind, body, and spirit. That is the key.
That's
so when
amazing.
you get connected to that part of you, that has always been there. I want to encourage and remember that part of you is there. You just forgot it just for a moment. We want to connect you back to it. Yeah.
So are there things that people can, in lieu, obviously, of working with you, that they can start to practice just getting over that mindset, to be able to get the courage up to... So I think a lot of people would like to speak. I work with a lot of people that are in operations, so they're usually behind the scenes.
Right.
And they want to be more in front of the camera. But it's super scary, and they don't know how to where to start or what to do. So are there things that people can start to work on to be more confident?
Yes, because not everybody's going to have so many opportunities to speak, like you said. Presenting doesn't come often. So why not take every conversation that you have as a mini presentation, right? If you're going to a networking event, use that as a mini presentation. I'm talking, and so when you're communicate as if you were a confident speaker, right then and there. I want you to encourage you, practice some skills, practice some tools before you go into networking events or before you're having a conversation, to center yourself. I always even before this podcast, I took a moment to just let go of all the thoughts, anything that I didn't need, all my worries and concerns about the future, so I could be fully present and really coming with focus, with intention, with curiosity in this space right now. So anytime before you go do these events, make sure you're present and feeling really good about yourself. And then when you speak, notice your language, notice how you're communicating, use that as an opportunity to practice. Practice a presentation, practice communicating. Notice when you're able to get feedback from the other person. Are you able to adjust your conversation? Are you able to adjust your words and your style? And because that's all important. If you could do this one-to-one, then you could do it one-to-many.
That's great.
Yeah.
I also suggest wearing a great pair of heels. That seems to be the
wear powerful clothes.
Yes,
clothes that make you feel great,
good,
right, and feel good, because it's a part of it. Yes,
I have 100%. Been on sales calls or some kind of big, huge thing that it was like, and I had like the best 4-inch heels on. Like I work for my house now. I don't need my shoes anymore, but I still love them. And it was like I needed that confidence to put on.
Yes,
so I was sitting here. No one saw my feet. They don't see anything below my shoulders with Zoom, but. Those little things, they work. I feel much better, right?
For sure. Yes. Again, get your body informed. It's not just what you're going to say, but you want to bring in your full body into this. That's why I say connect to your heart, wear the right shoes, exercise beforehand, listen to good music, get your body in this state of feeling really solid and confident and courageous.
I love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, Melinda, can you tell everyone about Speak and Flow and where they can find you?
Yes, Speak and Flow, as Kelly has mentioned, I have a new podcast. It's called the Speak and Flow Podcast. So go ahead and look me up on Apple Podcasts. I'm there. And you can also reach me at, just go ahead and email me. I'll put out my email, melinda@speakinflow.com. So I'd be happy to connect with any of you if you just want to take a deep dive and understanding about where you're at, some of your speaking challenges. I'd be happy to just support you. No pressure. I just love to connect with people.
Awesome. And we will put all of that information in the show notes too, so you can find Melinda easily.
Thank
you.
Melinda,
thank you so much for being here today. Yeah. This is a great conversation.
Oh, thank you.
And I will see everyone else next week. Thank you so much for joining me this week. If you have an agency or want to create one, come join my Facebook community, Get Your Agency Together, where we talk all the things growing and scaling your agency. For show notes and more info on all the things, head over to reynoldsobm.com. Follow me on Instagram and Facebook at Reynolds OBM. And finally, if you enjoy this podcast, I would love for you to give us a review on iTunes.